So I'm in about an hour and 3 minutes of Kings of the Road. It might make my top 11 so far, and I'm only in an hour of the film. The hour kind of made me realize this guy is probably one of the greatest filmmakers. Wim Wenders, German filmmaker. It's kind of in a way a take, I think, maybe on something like vaudevillian Waiting for Godot or something, you know, if you've seen the theater. But there's a lot of theater in it, and it's every shot's a masterpiece. This is when they find a wanderer, and that's when I, started thinking, okay, Waiting for Godot kind of thing. He finds them in like some kind of textured meal or a meal of some type, if you know what I mean. Like they're camped out next to some kind of factory or something of some sort, and he's throwing rocks. We're about to get into his story, but he was throwing like pebbles within this factory, making noise. The other wanderer finds him, and the driver, which I haven't showed him yet, he is basically a projectionist repairman that goes from cinema house to cinema house, repairing. If I rewind it right here, it'll show a shot. All these actors have names. This was made in 1974 when I was 1 year old. That's another wanderer. That's the one he just finds. There he is. So he is kind of the protagonist. It opens with him, and he's the repairman. He's basically like a maintenance man for projectors across cinemas. It's called Kings of the Road. I just put it on. Alice in the Cities, which I believe was done later, was recommended by Benny Safdie, who helped his brother Joshua on several masterpieces as well, including Uncut Gems and stuff like that. Anyway, he was in the Criterion closet, and he had recommended Alice in the Cities, and then it led me to Kings of the Road. This is also a road film, and I remember hearing about this, I think in high school, or maybe college. Maybe it was college, where the guy takes a dump on the screen and really does it, and that's this actor right here, which I'll find his name, and we'll get into this. I may be talking about this movie for quite a bit of time. I'm the guy that drives around, drops food off people's doorsteps, and then also talks about movies and music and stuff like that. One thing about Kings of the Road, why it's probably going to make my top 11, it will. I'll have to find a spot. One film will get booted out maybe, or what it'll be in the 11th spot, because I have trouble booting out my top 10s. That's why I have a top 11. My films go to top 11, but the reason why I have so many slots for top 11 is because I find another masterpiece that's going to make the top 10, and it goes into the 11th spot because I don't want to rearrange my Bergmans or my Scorseses that I've made, or my I think maybe it was Spielberg made. I think he did. Jaws made top 10, and my Fellini. You know, what I mean by top 10 is masterpieces. You know, they're the only ones that make the top 10, and then the 11th spot, I call it top 11 because I have a bunch of spots for my top. I even have a Sean Baker film for my top 11, which is Florida Project. So these are films that have made an impression on me in order to make like a top 11. This will be in the 11th spot. It might even make a top 10. That means I would bring it up from the 11th spot into the actual top 10. That means it made a profound and fluid effect on me. Like Blue Velvet, for example, is like number 6. You know, My Own Private Idaho is one of the numbers on it because it's made a personal impression on me. That's how I make the top 11. It doesn't have to do with like the world of cinema. It has to do with how the cinematic masterpiece has affected me in a personal way. This one, of course, it has really tugged on my heart. So we'll be adding it to 11, and I already know this. We're in an hour now. Alice in the Cities is actually a really good film. I'm probably going to put that in just a moment. I'm probably going to put that in my honorable mentions under Wim Wenders. I have to give more attention to Wim Wenders. He's becoming totally one of my favorite filmmakers since I've gotten the Criterion collection. And a few people have recommended, not a lot of people have recommended Wim Wenders, but Benny Safdie, I found out their name is Safdie. He actually recommended it, and on Alice in the Cities, and I went back and I thought, man, this Wim Wenders guy, and I think he's connected to the Dogma 95 movement. I want to say that he is. And I know that he is Paris, Texas, and all this stuff. Paris, Texas is going to be in my honorable mentions, of course. I don't know if Paris, Texas is going to make my top 10, though. I've got a lot of reasons why, though. Technically, I think this is more of a masterpiece. Technically, I think it is. First, it's black and white. I mean, Alice in the Cities, I think, is too, also black and white, but this one's black and white, and it seems to be more rigid and more focused. The transitions are brilliant. This would be a good film to teach when it comes to dissolves. Kubrick is also a master of dissolves, but the way he does dissolves in this one moment in this road film, this is a road film, he shows the projector spinning around in a circle, and then he slowly dissolves to the edge of the truck on the highway to one of the wheels, which is almost like a match cut. It pretty much is a match cut, but it's also a dissolve too. And I watch my dissolves when I'm seeing a film, and I ask myself, why are they dissolving? And this one, I don't have to ask that question, if that makes sense. The transition in itself has meaning, right? So the filmmaker is using only images for the meaning, where a writer will just use words, or a mime will use just their body to tell the story. A filmmaker has to use the image itself in order to tell the story. So he's using, and Wim Wenders is a master of that too. But anyway, you have to watch it if you know what I'm talking about. This is a brilliant piece. Kings of the Road is a brilliant film. I'm only in like an hour, but just to let you know, he does take a dump, but you only see it from a profile. And when I saw that, I wasn't offended. I asked myself, or I immediately, it took me out of the average cinematic film, and then I started seeing people, and that's what Wim Wenders reveals, is he reveals people. And so when I saw that moment, I saw a person creating, something that was human. It wasn't done in an offensive way, I've never been to a G.G. Allen concert, but it was that level of humanity, and then it brought me connected to these characters more so. Well, we'll talk about the actors later. I don't want to talk about everything at once. I just wanted to throw out some things for about 7-8 minutes on this film. More thing though, it also kind of reminds me of other films like Dumb and Dumber. That's a road film, even though Dumb and Dumber is not done the same way, but it's still a road film. And there's many other. There's one that I recently saw with Al Pacino and Gene Hackman. Gene Hackman and Al Pacino. That one also is a road film. I have to remember the name on that one. Jerry Schatzberg would also make a road film called Scarecrow with Gene Hackman and Al Pacino, and then of course there's Dumb and Dumber, and there's several different road films, but I think this one is the only one that would probably make my, I'd say, top 11. All those other films will get honorable mentions for sure, but you're gonna have to be typo craftsman to get into my 10th spot, especially even in my 11th spot. It's going to be something like 8.5, or, My Own Private Idaho, which is another road film that I think deserves my top 10. Blue Velvet is neo-noir, so there's a lot of neo-noir films in my top 10, like Taxi Driver, for example, is a neo-noir psychological thriller. Or is it a drama? I'll have to see if it's a drama or thriller. It's definitely neo-noir psychological. This is almost borderline, I would say, art house road film for sure. And there's a lot of those. There's thousands of those. But Kings of the Road definitely is going to make my top. I want to make a correction. Kings of the Road is actually 1976. I might have said it was 74. It's actually 1976. I just want to make that correction. And it is Wim Wender. Right, another correction. I know why I said 74. Alice in the Cities was made before this, and it's also black and white. It's 1974. Sorry about that. I made some mistakes. This is later on. So Alice in the Cities was made first. It's 1974, Wim Wenders, and he used this actor for the protagonist in that as well. Then in 1976, he made Kings of the Road, which is, I think, a more advanced film. But Alice in the Cities is it's a dangerously good film. It would win some contests big time. It would place, and probably it should have placed in Cannes or got some attention. It's a wonderful, wholesome film too, which is, I'm surprised coming from Benny Safdie, but it's actually quite wholesome and has a morale. A point about a guardian watching over a young girl. This one is more of just road film, two buddies hitting the road in search of survival. So the cinematographer is actually Dutch, and his name is Robert Muller, and he was used both on Kings of the Road as well as the earlier film Alice in the Cities. And he's a minimalist cinematographer, probably one of the best of all time, maybe, and definitely good with black and white, obviously. This film, just like Alice in the Cities, has some breathtaking black and white moments. I would think that Kings of the Road has more. When it comes to cinematography, you would have to. A cinematographer would actually be sit through this film without any problems. One more thing about Robert Muller. He wasn't just a minimalist when it comes to cinematography, but he was also one to known how to use natural light. The reason why I'm showing this little segment here is it's all supposed to be done in the dark. Very important if you're ever going to film anything in the dark. Films like Newton Boys with Richard Linklater, a lot of that was done in the dark as well too. There's a lot of films. I'm just throwing that out there because I'm remembering that film being a lot of like stuff near a railroad, and they show a train on this too. There's a lot of films like Wait Until Dark. I mean, thousands of films that are more than that are filmed, in the dark, or at least the resemblance of the dark. But here's the thing. Robert Muller was known to use natural light. So did they film it at twilight? I'm asking, did they film it at night? And if so, there were certain filters that had to be used, maybe backlighting that you can't really notice. But in this segment right here, it's all done, in the dark. One thing about Robert Muller is he's also one to know. He's known to use basically imagery. That's what his forte. That's what I would say. This is a great example of is a film that uses imagery, even though all films do. But I think the difference between Wim Wenders and a lot of other filmmakers is that he almost is philosophizing with his cinematography, meaning you could stop at almost any moment and get meaning out of the film, more so than a postcard. I would say even more so than a painting. And he's literally painting with the camera, because I think Alice in the Cities, there's a moment where the young girl and the guardian are sitting like in a cafe or something, and behind them there's all this like boutique stuff on the wall that represents stuff about the story. There's things behind the actors that's telling a story, if that makes any sense. I mean, here in this shot here, you can kind of tell that he's inside of a truck. It's not too hard to find out. Meaning it's not that he's revealing just where the actors are, but the place that they're put tells a story, even if you stop the camera like you would in a great photograph. You're not only questioning where they are, but it tells a story in itself. There's symbolism within the setting, if that makes sense, and what he's talking about. And then the dialogue would match as well. Another thing real quick about Kings of the Road is it is to be presented 5:3 format widescreen. But if you watch the Criterion Collection, it does show, or it does reveal the restoration of the film, as well as what it's supposed to be, seen in, meaning the ratio of 5:3 and widescreen, which I'm kind of learning some of this stuff. but it'll give a message on all the Criterion Collection movies. They will give a brief statement on how you're supposed to watch it. Now, one thing about Kubrick, and we're just switching over to Kubrick, he actually would send that information to the projectionist around the theaters in all, millions of cinema across the world, especially, I think, with maybe it was The Shining. He even had an agreement with the theaters to play certain music in the lobby. I remember this back when I was younger. You would go into the theater and they would play certain music in the lobby. They'd also have programs. So you'd go see a movie and you would be given a program to read sometimes, just like you would a play. I don't know if Kings of the Road had that, but real quick though, and I was just looking at the sound for Kings of the Road, which is amazing. The transition music, or you could say the theme music, you could also call it the non-diegetic music. The music that comes up when he brings the sound down. He does this in Alice in the Cities, and he does it in Kings of the Road. But what he does is he brings the sound completely out, and then he just brings in the music. This music, I don't know if it's been restored, is absolutely beyond the time of this film. It is amazing music, and it blew me away. It's probably what this is. Music in cinema, especially in films like Taxi Driver and things like that, are the reason why my films are going to be placed in the higher mark of like the top 10. Taxi Driver right now is probably going to stay at spot because of Bernard Herrmann. Not that Scorsese's not one of the best directors in the world, because he is. But Taxi Driver, I have not seen a movie yet that that jibed, and I don't mean to talk like a professor, but that jibed with the actual imagery than Taxi Driver. When it comes to Bernard Herrmann's score, no film can do that. I mean, I don't know how they played it out. But also, you can watch or you can listen to Taxi Driver's score in itself and be entertained. And it even sounds like a cab driving in New York City. So Bernard Herrmann was that good. Now, of course, they don't have Bernard Herrmann in this, but the music in it is absolutely dynamic and great. It's got a 1976 feel. So you're brought back in historical 1976, but also, like Wim Wender's is timeless. The music even applies today. I can't really describe the type of music. It's not exactly rock music, and it's not really 1970s music, even though he has a record player, a portable record player that he has placed in the cabin of his truck. There's a huge truck that has like drill presses and stuff like that in the back, as well as a jukebox in the back. And he also has a portable record player where you can slide in a record. They had these. It's been in some Italian cinema films where there's a comedy. I can't think of it right now, but Scorsese would know the name of it. But the guy takes out a record and he puts it into the car dash like you would, or where the radio is in the car. There's a little slot for like a record to go into. There's an Italian comedy where the guy's driving really recklessly through traffic and he takes out this record, he puts it into. Well, anyway, this film has the same kind of comedy effect where he takes this record out, it's a little 45 record, and he just puts it in, the little record player. And he does that throughout the film, and it gives it kind of a hip feeling, because you're listening to like rock and roll in a diegetic way, as if the characters are listening to rock and roll and you're listening to rock and roll with them. But then in the transition, he brings everything down and he plays his own version of what, rock and roll or whatever, that feel is, rebellion kind of thing. And you kind of get into the minds of the characters when he does this in between the transitions. And that's another reason why I think it's going to make my top 11. It's because those transitions are so exact and how it works. You got to watch this film. That actor is still around. His name is Rudiger Vogler, and he's playing a character named Bruno Winter, who is the projectionist repairman. One more statement to make about Kings of the Road. There's a great shadow puppet. Actually, I'll probably rewind it because we might be talking about this film for a few days. There's a shadow puppet moment. They work on projection or basically like cinema projectors. 35 millimeter cinema projectors, most likely, that are around Germany, I believe. And because they mentioned Munich and they mentioned a bunch of other things, so I believe they're traveling to Germany. Like kids' movie theaters and just regular movie theaters, whatever. But regardless, they go to this one movie theater where, like, I guess a class comes in, like a school class, young kids, to watch a movie. And I guess a backlight is hit, and they're in the middle of trying to repair their projector. And all of a sudden, their shadows come up on the screen. So every movement they make is kind of amplified, as a shadow puppet. So they realize that the kids are watching them, and they have to put on a performance, and that's where I got in, kind of like Waiting for Godot or something, where these two vaudevillian characters, and all the children are just kind of laughing at them as they're. Let me rewind it, and I'll show you kind of a segment real quick. This is Robert Mueller's genius. You can see the sky, and as they're driving, the sky is like going through them, and it's an awesome little moment. I'm still looking for the segment where they're doing the shadow puppets. Okay, there's a phone booth right there. I had a better shot, but hang on, give me a second. That's Hans Zischler, who plays. That's Hans Zischler, who plays Robert Lander. He's still alive as well. He's still around. He plays kind of what I'd call the wanderer in this. He's the one that's picked up by the repairman. In the very beginning segment of this movie, they drive a VW Bug into a lake, basically like a pond. That's where the protagonist is basically camped out. They're both kind of protagonists in a way, I guess you could say. But where the guy who's playing Mr. Winter is camped out, and he just drives he's a divorcee, and it's kind of like I kind of think of Neil Simon's play and also movie with Jack Lemmon, The Odd Couple, where he's basically trying to kill himself after the divorce. Well, that's what he kind of tries to do, but immediately as he hits the water, he undoes the sunroof and gets out and decides to live, and escape and run off with this projectionist repairman. And the landscape here, he does a pan shot right here to show the landscape, which he could have easily just had the truck just kind of pass by, but he follows it. He pans this way to show more the cinescope of things. Miller, this shot's amazing too, from the rearview mirror. If you watch my vlog, I use a lot of this rearview mirror. This is very nice because it's at a profile. It shows a very well command of the camera. And then he's jotting in a map where he finds these 3 different cities. One is called Peaceless. Another city is called I think the Dead Man or something like that. They have all these symbolic names. They're all in German. But he doesn't believe, that these cities are really called this, as they're traveling through Germany. So a lot of German theater does deal in, especially older German theater, is some stuff similar to vaudevillian. But this is very, it's shadow puppets, and they're kind of, I guess you could say, being vaudevillian, like pretending like they're hitting each other on the head. He's trying to play the piano. I think it's like a shadow puppet and vaudevillian mixed together. I looked at some stuff from Meyerhold and its body biometrics. They're not that artistic on it. Meyerhold was like executed for his beliefs in the theater in Russia. But this is actually more, it's not that artsy, but they are just fooling around. It kind of almost Three Stooges kind of stuff. But yet it's shadow puppets, the lighting is from behind, and the kids just love it. So this is Wim Wender's being creative as a filmmaker and stepping outside of just your modern, your realism. It's still real, but it's not completely real, I mean, it's staged, but it's done in a very creative way. And this is where they were working on the projector, and there's a piano behind the theater, as well as, the projector right there. Underneath where the ladder is. It's a pretty cool little moment. So I'm reading about it. It ended up that he drove his VW Bug into a river. It looked like a lake, but it was a river. I'm just reading up on it. I'm not going to try to cover the whole film right now. I'm only an hour into it, but this segment right here, I went backwards, is only at 40 minutes, so close to an hour. And right here, I realized, man, this thing is just a masterpiece. There's not going to be a lot of filmmakers like Wim Wenders, but you have to dangerously watch his stuff. I have already vlogged a lot of his stuff. He has a documentary that's just recently come out that's also brilliant about a painter in Germany. But if you're a filmmaker, or if you're interested in a filmmaker, you haven't heard of Wim Wenders, you probably want to go ahead and look him up. Okay, I think it might have been like a gravel mill or something where they crush rocks or something, where he finds this stranger that is about to come into the back of this truck, which is this is what the back of the truck looks like. It has like a jukebox over here. There's like a drill press, and he made a makeshift bed. This is the truck that they're basically traveling in, and he'll come in and give this conversation about his past, and we get into that character's head. I'm probably going to cut here, watch the rest of it, and talk about it later. I'm already at 25 minutes. This is going to be a film that you can talk about for probably months or even years. You could just go on forever. It's a great film. You can sit there and talk about it and find symbolism and everything for a very long time. Anyway, forgive my pronunciation, but this actor is Marco Baum, and he was in, I believe, a film about a revolution in Germany. And he's recently passed, well, he passed, I think not too long ago. But he plays the man who lost his wife. Now, here's one thing I want to talk about Wim Wenders. I know he didn't use CGI. This is supposed to be the blood of the man's wife. Right. It's in black and white, so it's very easy to imagine that. But look at the fly. There's a fly that's, so I don't know if they got something to make this fly, get there in the shot. But a fly would go to blood for sure. And they maybe use cow blood or something. But it's a moment where he's going to talk about something that happened to his wife, and that's in this scene. You do learn that his wife drove into a tree, and this is her coat that he's wearing, and he's found in that rock mill. One thing about this, too, is this is basically the jukebox that has the small, I call them 45 RPM records. I'll look up the size of the record later, but he uses those later in the front of the cabin, the driver, to play music, and a small mobile record player that he keeps there. That's probably where he gets this. So he probably found this, or at one of the theaters, they were getting rid of it, and it ended up in the back of his, or maybe he's trying to repair it, because he's also kind of a mechanic. But this is a stranger that wanders in. So Bruno Winters, who's the character up front, is listening to the wall as the stranger that lost his wife tells a story. And there's Robert Lander listening to the man who lost his wife next to the jukebox. The actor that's playing him is, and that's Robert Lander. And the actor playing him is Hans Zischler, who also, he worked in Munich with Steven Spielberg way later in his career. Still around too. Okay guys, I'm gonna come back to this if I can, but like I said, I'm only at an hour of it and I love it. I don't know if I'm going to make like an top hour films, to see if it starts to decline after an hour. I'm sure it'll hold its reputation throughout the end of the 3-hour mark of this film, Kings of the Road. And if I get back to it tomorrow, which hopefully I have time, then I'll be able to say more stuff about it. And I'm talking off the top of my head here. And I don't have these actors' names memorized, but I'm getting more familiar with Wim Wenders and sharing that with you.